Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 133 and we have a good one for you today. Today's fish is one of those fish that people hear about, but they hear about it, think it's really cool, and then just kind of forget about it. And I'm very guilty of this as well. This is an insanely cool fish that gets media attention probably once every 4 or 5 years, and then people forget about it. It's just a really interesting thing that just people don't talk about. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is, bam, the walking catfish. Now, the walking catfish, or scientific name Clarius batrachus, again, that's Clarius batrachus. It is part of the family Clariidae. That's Clariidae, which is the family of air-breathing catfishes. Super neat family. Found, well, really they're found all over the world, but they're really native to like the southeastern Asia and Africa. I believe Africa has the most species, but the one that we're talking about, Clarius batrachus, is native to Southeast Asia, but it's very specifically native to the Java island of Indonesia. It is often confused with other species, or maybe not necessarily confused, but there's a group of fish that are just called walking catfish that are technically different species. And in fact, it turns out that even this species is not as widespread as that. That's why I'm saying specifically to Java, because it seems like the other ones out that are not outside of the Java island look to be either subspecies or completely different species. I'm a little unsure on the genealogy of this, so I'm just kind of letting it play out. But I know they're in the Java island of Indonesia. That seems to be very true. But all of these walking, air-breathing catfishes have been introduced to pretty much all across the world due to either aquaculture or aquarium introductions. I'm just going to start this off now. Do not buy this for your aquarium. Just don't do it. Please, please, please don't do it. Unless you are a very, very, very experienced aquarium person and know exactly how to take care of them and know exactly how to properly dispose of a fish. Okay? I'm looking at you. Okay. Anyway, so what waters would you find this fish in? Well, you're going to find this fish in muddy ponds, canals, ditches, rice paddies, very stagnant hypoxic waters. No oxygen, which would make sense because this is an air-breathing catfish. We've talked about fish that are obligatory or facultative air breathers in the past, fish that either have to breathe air or can choose to, and those fish are almost universally found in waters of bad oxygen quality, swamps, and just muddy stuff. And they evolve in there so that they have less competition from other fish species. Because a lot of fish out there can't breathe oxygen, so it really helps them kind of find a unique niche in the ecosystem. They're usually found on the bottom like most other catfish, but you will see them frequently come to the surface to gulp air, very obviously. And of course, they're known to walk across land during and after rains. When the ground is very wet, you'll see these things leave their ponds and go across the land, going from pond to pond. They're not good at it. Like, these are not winning races, but they are getting there. They basically just wiggle, 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 keeping their skin and gills moist, and away they go. Very successful at it and can survive quite a long time. I believe as long as their gills are wet, like 18 hours out of the water. So pretty efficient. They are a small fish, about half a meter, which is 1.6 feet, or 1.2 kilograms, 2.6 pounds in weight. So not a large fish. That seems to be about as large as they can get. They have this elongated body. I call it eel-like. It might be closer to like a fusiform body shape, but to me it looks a little more eel-like. They have this narrow head, and they have a thin cavity between the frontal and side bones of the skull. You might see that, you might not. It's easier to feel, but it's definitely noticeable. Other than that, it's kind of bland. This brown, dark brown color. It does have these white spots. You can't really see here. You see a little bit of mottling, but they do have other color patterns. Like you can take this very young one right here, which is like head correct, back albino. Kind of a weird color pattern. This is a real small one because there's a shrimp for scale, I think. Pretty sure that's a shrimp. It's got this elongated dorsal fin, elongated anal fin. But something interesting to note is they do not have an adipose fin, which is that fleshy fin that a lot of the North American catfish have. Like most other catfish, it is scaleless, and if you notice, they have a lot of barbels up here. If you just see all these barbels, a little easier to see here. They're just sticking up, almost looks like a dang old porcupine sticking up right there. Now they do during dry seasons or very cold seasons, they actually burrow into mud, kind of like the lungfish that we've talked about before. They just burrow into mud, and that's how they kind of survive. But during the summer, that's when they become much more active. And in fact, during the summer rainy times, that's when they start their reproduction cycle, which is an incredibly intricate process that I was very, very unaware of how intricate it is. So we're going to dive into that now. So what happens is a couple of days before the reproduction stuff begins, the male and female kind of pair up and they swim side by side. Just swim around, just hang it out, it's kind of like the little courting period. Then they both find a place to dig a hole. Usually it's next to a cave or a little berm or something. They find a place and then they both dig a hole, so they go together. Then the female actually initiates the reproduction process by nudging the male, basically bumping him, little, school, junior high antics. The girl wants attention from the boy, keeps, just bumping into them. And then the male is like, okay, the male becomes receptive. Then the female immediately starts blowing the male off. And the male has to do the same process to get the female ready for reproduction. So now it's the male's turn to court and nudging. He keeps nudging the female, trying to get her ready for reproduction. Then finally, when both of them have been courted by each other, the male starts circling the female. And he circles her for several times, and I'm, 5, 10, 12 times, many times, just swimming in a circle. And it's in a spiral pattern that gets tighter and tighter until finally he gets close and just loops his body around her. So wraps his body around hers, and then they finally start spawning. And then they spawn actually in cycles. And the cycles usually last about 10 seconds. There's a joke in there, but I don't think I can say it on YouTube. So they have their first spawning cycle, which is horrible. Even the research actually says it's completely inefficient. The first spawning cycle, the female will release about 5 eggs. The male doesn't release a lot of milk. And then after the first cycle is done, the female swims away. She comes back 5-10 minutes later, and they try again. And with each cycle, the female releases more and more eggs with each time, and the male releases more and more milk. So she'll come back, and remember, each cycle is about 10 seconds. So 10 seconds, swims away for 5 minutes, comes back, another 10 seconds, swims away, and comes back. And they continue doing this, but they'll continue doing this for up to 20 hours. So 20 hours, just a lot of cycling. And it equals out to, I believe, about 7,000 to 8,000 eggs. All told during a spawning period. And what's really interesting, the bright orange eggs, bright orange. Think about this. This is living in brown, muddy environments, and it's laying bright orange eggs. Really weird. But what's even weirder is the entirety of the mating season, this fish is monogamous. Whenever a male and female find each other during a breeding season, they're completely monogamous. They will only spawn with their partner during that time. And then after all the eggs are laid, the female leaves. And the male guards the nest, just sitting there guarding the nest. Then all of a sudden, when the eggs hatch, the female sort of like magically reappears, and then they both guard the fry for 24 hours, right around there. After 24 hours, they leave. Those babies are on their own. The male and female go off. It's just a really weird, intricate reproduction cycle. So now, for the interesting fact that we're going to end the video on, even though that reproduction cycle is deserving of its own interesting fact, many amphibious fish, snakeheads, use vision to move from one water body to the next. So many of these fish that can walk across land, they are looking for waters. They're using their vision. This fish vision suck. Walking catfish have horrendous vision. Very poorly developed eyes, and they move at night. So how are they doing this? Well, there was a scientist, a PhD student actually, that had an interesting concept. Walking catfish find their prey by chemoreception, so he wanted to see if they found waterways via chemoreception. And sure enough, yes, which chemoreception is the chemical signals that you get like taste and smell. So, and sure enough, he was actually spot on. They do actually find water while traveling across the land by chemoreception. This makes it the first documented instance of a fish using chemoreception on land. How they do this is, it turns out, you see how stiff these barbels on, and granted this one's a little there, they can actually wave those whiskers up in the air smelling for stuff. If you've ever seen a catfish out of water, usually these whiskers are very droopy. These are very mobile by a walking catfish. So they're actually, I believe they're waving those whiskers around, which are specifically made for chemoreception in water. And they have a little bit of mechanisms that in there that allow them to also taste the air. So very, very interesting fish. Very, very interesting. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If I don't, please be safe. Have a great day. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you do, I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Loving all the support. Thank you so much. The channel is growing. It's been awesome. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. And peace.